Hello friends, today we are going to start a series of video where we'll discuss how to process big data in the real life scenarios, how to do the batch processing, how to utilize the distributed processing, how we can process the data 100 times faster than the traditional way, utilizing Spark, how parallel processing work. So everything we're going to start discussing in this video. Furthermore, we are going to discuss the architecture in this particular video. So let's start our discussion and let's start our journey.
Now let's look into the data flow from storage to CPU, how it basically work. It's not Spark, okay, but basically how it's happened. Let's take an example of our personal computer, okay. Suppose each one of us working with our personal computers, we have a Excel file there. Where we have the Excel file? We have the Excel file in the hard drive, right? And we want to process that file. The Excel file size, suppose 10 GB. Okay. Now our processor is responsible to process that, right? We want to do some changes or transformation in that file. Now, how it will happen? Processor basically, the process is actually the processor will take the file into RAM and process that and return the file to hard disk itself after processing. Okay. That is the basic process actually. I'm not talking about Spark right now. That's this basic process. Now what is happening? We have to take the file into RAM. Okay. Now let's see, our RAM size is 8 GB. Okay. And our hard drive size, I mean not hard drive, the file we have in hard drive, that size I have said 10 GB. So the thing is, if the RAM size is less than the file size, we'll not be able to process the file in RAM. We need less size of file to pull that in the RAM and process that. Suppose the file size is 4 GB and the RAM size is 10 GB. Then we can easily process that file. But the file size, if the file size is bigger, I mean greater than the RAM size, it will not be able to process that file, and it will give us, I mean, we'll face the issues. We know our system can get stuck, something like that. Okay. Here, the distributed system come into the picture. Okay. So suppose now I have file of 100 GB in the hard disk or storage, you can say. Consider this hard drive as S3 location in AWS where we can store the objects. So now consider we have 100 GB of file, but we have 8 GB of RAM. We cannot pull that in our RAM and process that file. Now suppose we have 10 instance, EC2 instance, you can say, for example, okay, just an example. Since 10 systems, okay, or 10 workers, 10 DPUs, you can say whatever you want. Uh, so now we have 10. Now each of them we have 12 GB of RAM. So 10 DPUs or 10 instance we have, each one have 12 GB of RAM. Now we have 100 GB of data. Let's divide, just a minute. Okay. Now we have 10 workers. Okay. Each have 12 GB of RAM. 10 into 12 equals to, total I have 120 GB of RAM. Okay. Now I have total 100 GB, 120 GB of RAM, and I have 100 GB of data, 100 GB of data. So I can easily distribute this 100 GB of data in this 10 worker, between this 10 worker, it will get 10 GB each. Okay. If I divide this 100 GB of data in 10 workers, it will have 10 GB data each, right? It has the capacity of 12 GB of RAM. Now it can easily process the 100 GB of data. What do you say? Is it possible or not?
Yes, Ganesh, it is possible.
Yeah. So that is called distributed processing, which previously I was giving example of peoples. Okay. Previous technologies we are talking about. So before that, we also had a big amount of data, right? Before Spark. So what was the technology handling that thing? I mean, those much data. That was Hadoop. Okay. Hadoop was handling that much data previously, but Spark we consider 100 times better than 100 times faster than Hadoop. Okay. Why? Let's see why. At least try to find out why. So in the below section, below the red line, you will find Hadoop. So this is the section where we'll discuss about a little bit about Hadoop versus Spark. Not in deep, but we'll have the understanding. So Hadoop, how it was happening previously. In Hadoop, you will not see too much different in these two, but try to find out the difference. Here, you are seeing this is hard disk or the storage. Okay. Here in the Spark section, here you are seeing it is RAM. Okay, there's the difference. Now let's discuss. Previously in Hadoop, what we are doing, we are reading from disk, passing the data in the RAM, writing that in the disk itself. Then for the next process, we are again reading that from the disk and writing that again back in the disk after passing from the RAM. But currently in Spark, we are reading that one time and passing the whole thing in the RAM itself. Then at the end of the process, directly we are writing it in the disk. It's doing the whole process in RAM itself, not one time reading from hard disk and writing back again after completing one step and again reading it, and after completing the second step it's writing back again in hard disk. Okay, so that's the reason it is faster. Yeah. Let's discuss about the Spark architecture. This is the most important thing. If you understand how Spark architecture work, then every picture in Spark is clear, will be clear to you. Everyone think that Spark is about syntax different between Python, Pandas, and Spark. No, it's not that actually. Spark is a framework. Syntax can be copied from anywhere, can be learned from anywhere. Syntax different can be, I mean, we can nowadays we can paste something in somewhere. I mean, some AI tools we can use easily and change the syntax. But Spark is not about only about that language, that syntax we need to change. It's about its architecture, why it is faster. We have to understand that thing. Then only it will help us to do any kind of optimization or anything like that. Okay. So let's discuss about the Spark architecture.